everybody to another episode of I'm Sotheby's Car Show, and we're recording this in Richmond in the library, and it's the new year, so we've come back after our Christmas and New Year break, and it's a busy year, basically, isn't it, Will? Hello, Will.
Hi, Peter.
I would just like to introduce the fact that I'm sitting here with two very important specialists, Will Smith, but more important than Will Smith, in a management role, Bertie the Wheaten Terrier. Bertie's looking a bit weary, Will. I'm not sure he's going to participate
What
much.
have you done to him? Did he go for a particularly long walk this morning?
We had a very bad journey to work this morning, and he was in the boot of my car, my Volkswagen Golf, and my exotic Volkswagen Golf, and it took 2 hours.
It's great to have him here, though. I mean,
he's a very calming influence, isn't he?
Always a pleasure.
He's like one of those dogs you take into hospital to make people feel a little bit better.
Is that why you bring him in? Because this is basically like a hospital.
It makes me feel better. It calms me. But he's not looking like he's really going to say very much.
He might be asleep before you know it.
But anyway, he's got his own chair, which is nice. So, Will, here we are. It's January now. We're gearing up for Paris.
Yes.
Which we'll talk about. We're going to go into more depth, I think, about Paris and some of these specific lots we got in Paris in another episode.
Sure.
I think we're going to try and get out before the Paris auction happens at the end of this month, on the 31st of January, for our readers' benefit, or our listeners' benefit, rather.
Tell you're a journalist.
You can tell. Yeah, I know. It's not even a Monday. But there's an auction before Paris.
There is. Arizona.
Arizona.
A legendary sort of venue for us, like the Biltmore Hotel.
Yeah.
Steeped in sort of 1920s Art Deco glamour.
It's great, isn't it? I've been there.
Marilyn Monroe used to stay there.
Did she?
Yeah, she had her own like little swimming pool, and it's known as Marilyn's swimming pool, and she used to stay there, and with all the glitzy sort of people of that era, and yeah, so it's got a lot of glamour to it as a destination. It's great because it's January and it's sunny and it's always nice and warm. And we got some hugely important and interesting cars going to Arizona. And then it is back to Paris, back to Europe for our first big sale of the year, isn't it? And it is one of the biggest.
It is. And you're going out to Arizona?
I'm not sure.
You're not sure? No, I'm not. I have been before, and it is mega, and it is lovely to see the sun at this time of year. And they have some very impressive cacti around that.
Some of the largest
hotel
in the world, I think.
Apparently they're ancient. Like if you see a cactus which is
100 foot tall.
Yeah, and it's been growing since Neanderthal.
I didn't even think cacti could grow to that scale.
They're very. My first trip to that auction a couple of years ago was the first time I'd seen such magnificent cacti.
Amazing.
But we won't dwell too much on the cacti.
No.
So we've got Arizona, which is going to be great. Paris. As I say, we're not going to say. We won't. Let's not say too much about Paris because we're going to do.
No, but it's on the 31st of January. The catalogue's on the website. People can check it out. Yeah, we've got loads of interesting cars.
And it's in this great venue, isn't it, that we used for the first time last year. The under the Louvre, essentially. It's subterranean, but it's a massive venue.
But it feels like an extension.
Salle de Carousel, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yes.
And it feels like an extension of the Louvre, like another room or exhibition, because it is part of the same building.
Yeah.
So you get this like very high-end, artistic, modern kind of look and aesthetic to the venue. Yeah. Which is unlike quite a lot of venues that we go to, and it's just a very, very smart and lovely place to present cars.
Although, do you remember, if you're sort of in the foyer area or walking towards the rooms where the auction takes place, do you remember seeing that ancient wall?
Yes.
It's like it's sort of old Roman walls or something,
which they kind of preserved.
Which they preserved.
And then built over.
Yeah.
But
and then built a shopping centre on top of it.
Literally, McDonald's is like across the road. But hey, other fast food outlets are available. But in terms of venues, it's up there. And there is very much the auction itself takes place within this amphitheatre. And it's a very kind of warm and interesting environment to observe an auction, which at times does look like and should be like theatre, really.
It is. It's really great, and we will come back to Paris. And then, of course, we got our new event, Moda Miami.
Yeah, that's really exciting, and that's a really interesting take and concept of the traditional Concours event, which we're trying to shake up a bit and make a little bit more relevant, a bit more modern, and a bit more interesting for visitors. And that's 1st and 2nd of March, and really
At another Biltmore hotel.
another legendary Biltmore hotel, and lots of space, incredible cars both on display, and obviously there will be an auction element over 2 days.
So what is it then, Motor Miami? It's as you say, it's not just an auction. It's a whole kind of automotive lifestyle event, isn't it?
Yes, I mean, which sounds sort of very, your sort of PR worldy kind of spinny kind of stuff. But
what are you saying?
But I think in terms of reaching out to new audiences, I think that is what the classic car community need to be doing. I think there's a risk of the classic car community just sticking to their guns and not sharing the passion that they need to be to interest the next generation. Like, that's what we're talking about.
Yeah.
For our passion and our industry to thrive, it needs another generation to come through.
Yeah.
So we're extending it to sort of art and fashion and cars and broadening the appeal, I guess. And through Sotheby's as well, who are obviously going to help us massively to do that.
Absolutely. And I mean, everyone's got their own view, and I'm just speaking very personally. I've never historically been a huge Concours lover. I know some people love Concours events, and that's absolutely fine. And I think there is a very North American way of doing Concours. Actually, I mean, the European way is not that different if you look at events like Villa d'Este, but it's very much sort of beige chinos, blazer, and straw hat.
The straw hat is a consistent theme, isn't it?
But it's also quite middle-aged in terms of the look and feel. So I think the idea of making a Concours event more appealing to a younger audience by just changing some of the dynamics that you have.
Well,
I think that's
we've got a kids area. Like, that's not something you would ever see a Concours event, a kids area. So I guess that's what we're trying to achieve with that event, and it is really important. And I think for a lot of us who work within the industry, to see events like that pop up. And we're really excited to go there and show the world what a car event should be like.
And so we have, within the auction at Motor, we have one lot. It probably won't be the only one that's not a car, but it's an interesting one.
It is indeed, and it's got some Hollywood history to it, Peter.
It has. It's a Gipsy Moth.
Yeah.
So that's a British sort of biplane. That's the word I was looking for. I don't actually know the year that plane was made, but the important thing about this particular plane is that it featured in the film Out of Africa.
Indeed.
Flown, in terms of the character that flew it within the movie, by Robert Redford.
My mum's favourite actor.
My mum's favourite actor. Very cool.
Yeah.
I think we'd all like to look like Robert Redford, wouldn't we?
He was just a wonderful, wonderful looking man.
He was.
And I'm very confident to say that.
And him and Robert Redford, him and Paul Newman in Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid was like, that's the dream team, isn't it?
I think they disturbed a whole generation of women by teaming up.
But the thing is with that aircraft is that it was very central. It was a very central feature of that movie because Redford's character, he's kind of an adventurer. He's a big game hunter, and you get these. I think it won a lot of Oscars Out of Africa, but I think it won the award for the cinematography and those incredible scenes of the plane flying across.
Was
the
it plane
savannas.
to plane or helicopter to plane?
I think yes, a lot of it was
very cool.
Yeah, and it is absolutely beautiful. And I've got an interesting anecdote about Out of Africa.
Does it involve your good self?
Well, the premiere in the UK was in Edinburgh.
Right.
And I went to the premiere and I was quite young. And the reason is that my old man had a friend locally, sort of in the south of England, and his name was Robin Finch Hatton. Robin's sadly not alive anymore. And Redford's character in Out of Africa is Dennis Finch Hatton.
Right.
And Dennis Finch Hatton was the Earl of Winchelsea. Okay. So he was an aristocrat.
Okay.
And Robin Finch Hatton has an older brother, and his older brother is or he's probably not alive anymore now either, but he was the current Earl of Winchelsea. But Robin, the Right Honourable Robin Finch-Hatton, was a really keen car guy.
Right.
And he had a BMW 328. My dad had a BMW 328, and they were just friends.
Cool.
And used to spend a lot of time together. And so it's just a bit random. So when the Finch-Hatton family were invited to the premiere, and
they couldn't get anyone else, so they.
I went with my mum and dad.
That's amazing.
And it was really cool.
And did you meet Robert Redford and Mel Street and all this?
No, I didn't actually get to meet them.
Oh.
I was sort of I saw them.
Okay.
But I was sort of ushered into 12-year-old boys. They're not really welcome. I don't know if I was 12, but I can't remember the year.
It's a really, that is a really cool piece of motion picture history, that plane, and also kind of what is kind of part of what we're trying to do is broaden the appeal of what we're doing here and appealing to different collector communities. And certainly the plane collector community is very different to the car collector community.
It is. But the interesting. This has always fascinated me, but because I don't have a pilot's license, it's entirely pointless me scouring adverts for aircraft. But the estimate on that Gipsy Moth, and it's a kind of a restored, up and running plane, is $140,000 to $220,000.
Yeah.
$140,000 doesn't actually these days get you a staggeringly incredible car. It gets you some very nice cars, let's not underplay it, but and it's a lot of money by most people's standards, but this is an aeroplane, and for the price of a kind of a 2.2e Porsche.
I feel the same way about boats. I think boats and planes have the same sort of allure when it comes to their values, but because I think most people realise who own boats and planes is that they cost 8 times as much to actually maintain a boat or a plane.
They do,
than the actual initial outlay.
Yeah, I'm not sure what it would cost to sort of look after and fly a Gipsy Moth on an annual basis, but probably more than I've got. But they do look, and in fact, tiger moths in particular, in this country, you can buy a pretty decent one for like £70,000.
Well, you should. You could
just park it and just put it in the garden and
you live in a nice rural community. You can fly around and annoy your neighbours. It'd be great.
But we don't just sell cars.
No,
we
it's
sell
true.
planes. We do sell the occasional boat. Sell a few motorbikes.
So Moda.
Yeah.
We go from Miami to another new event.
Before you say that,
okay,
can I just say one thing about that Gipsy Moth?
Yeah.
The proceeds are going to a charity. It's important to say
that is important.
because the plane has remained in Africa on a game park.
Yes. And
the proceeds are going to save the black rhino. Great. I think it's important we get that.
No, absolutely. That's really important.
Anyway, okay, well, so we've covered off Moda.
Yeah.
And then only a week later, something quite exciting and interesting. What are we doing?
We are going to a brand new auction, another brand new auction. At this time, it's in the Middle East, and it is a truly groundbreaking event. I mean, we say that a lot about our events, but I genuinely think that for the region, it is a hugely exciting development that we are now doing an auction with cars in Dubai. Because, frankly, I don't think in Dubai, I know it has been done in Abu Dhabi and Saudi Arabia, but in actually Dubai itself, car auctions are a bit of an anomaly and have been historically. So we are making huge ground into the Middle East with that auction. And the Dubai sale is really exciting. It's a bespoke, quite low number of cars, so it's quite curated sale.
Cool venue.
Very, very cool. The concrete venue.
Yeah.
Which has won many architectural awards.
What's the concrete venue made of?
Do you know? Good one. The kind of cars that we want to try and attract to that sale are the sort of things that, okay, there's lots of sort of modern supercars that you can buy in Dubai and many are on the market. But, and I think some other people that have gone to the region have made the mistake to offer the very cars that are in the shop windows 10 yards down the road in those locations. I think what we always try and strive to do is find cars you can't just go down the road and buy.
Yeah.
And if you find those kind of vehicles, the job of selling them is a lot easier, and because people really are intrigued and they come to you. So really, as a specialist, if I'm doing my job properly, I should just be consigning cars that people are itching and dying to own. But my general rule is that if I would like to own it, then maybe a discerning customer would like to own it as well.
Because it's all about the car collecting scene in the Middle East.
Yeah.
It is the UAE, Saudi, the whole region. It is growing, and there's a growing acceptance that there is a world of car ownership that isn't just modern supercars and hypercars.
For sure.
Yeah.
And it's very much goes down an art theme, which in that part of the world is obviously one of the biggest areas of growth in the art market in the last 10 years has been in the Middle East.
Yeah.
And the interest in the Middle East to the art market has been overwhelming in the last 10 years. So as a consequence of us positioning ourselves with cars and art and Sotheby's and having more of that connection, I think it's intrinsic and it goes hand in hand that we're going to be doing auctions in that part of the world, and also that people in that part of the world in the Middle East want to embrace cars as art, because I think a lot of what we're seeing now and the events that they're putting on, there's a huge tie-in there with the art world, and I think slowly but surely people are seeing that, and as we've shown in the last few years with combining contemporary art sales and car sales. 250 GTOs and Sotheby's in New York, and F1 cars in Geneva, Luxury Week in Geneva last year. So, the theme is there. Art and cars is actually happening. And I think it's a great new opportunity to explore it.
Because the interesting thing is that there was a perception, and it was likely true for a very long period of time, that a classic car is, in inverted commas, a second-hand car. And that they don't really want second-hand cars. Yes. They want new cars, Bentleys and Rolls-Royces and Bugattis and stuff like that. But that's part of the evolution, isn't it? That people are going, this thing is a collectible entity in its own right. It's not a second-hand car.
Yeah.
And I think we've got a pre-war Bugatti coming into the sale. Which is. It's amazing that cars like that, they are. I mean, most of them are hidden away, but there are pre-war cars out there.
Absolutely.
You wouldn't really imagine to be the case.
And racing cars. Racing in the area has obviously, in the last 15 years, started with Bahrain, didn't it? When they came into Formula One. Yeah. Slowly but surely, region after region, country after country has followed suit by building racetracks, and obviously as a consequence of that, a lot more money has gone into racing. Endurance racing is huge over there now. So I think the whole area is expanding its knowledge and its love.
And we sponsored, RM Sotheby sponsored the historic GP in Dubai. It was early December, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Which I was fortunate to go to. Beautiful weather, 30-something degrees in early December. So we love that. But, a great selection of cars, and and it's sort of, they're trying to give that a kind of a period, sort of almost revive. It was sort of very 70s themed, and it was really cool. It was really cool, and you can't imagine events like that taking place 10 years ago.
No.
So,
also, can I mention another event which I just love?
Yeah.
It's going on right now. Is the Dakar. And now the Dakar's in Saudi Arabia. And it's now an annual thing, and all the big manufacturers are there now, kind of putting a lot of money into that, and it just shows where a lot of the money is in the world of motorsports is going. And at the moment, the interest definitely is that Middle East is really embracing that kind of motorsport, and lots of other types of motorsport.
No, absolutely, and so I think we're really looking forward to Dubai, and funnily enough, we're going to do a podcast from the Dubai, so people can actually, in a few weeks' time, see this remarkable venue that we've secured.
And your remarkable suntan, of course, that you'll know.
By that time, I'm going to go out 2 weeks in advance, so I can really smash the tan out of the ballpark.
Yeah. Hawaiian tropic all the way.
Yeah. No, happy days. So let's just sort of begin to wind up our conversation about the events that are coming up later this year, but we are duty bound because we've got another. Well, we're going back to Monaco.
Of course
aren't
we
we,
are.
in May?
Yes.
And that's the weekend of the historic Grand Prix out there.
Yeah.
Mega. So they, for the benefit of our listeners, the historic Grand Prix takes place only about a week or so before the proper Grand Prix, but that means that they've essentially done all of the work around the city to get it ready for racing.
You mean turning it into a logistical nightmare?
All the Armco safety barriers, all of the temporary grandstands have gone up, and all of that kind of stuff, and it's great. And we have I always get this wrong. Biannual does mean every 2 years,
Correct.
not twice a year, doesn't it?
No, biannual is every 2 years.
Yes. Okay. Biannual. I did go to school, by the way, at some point. So biannual, we went to Villarurba last year.
Yeah.
So it's a Monaco year in 2024. And that's always a great sale, isn't it? Great venue, lots of cars.
It always delivers, and it's glamorous, and it's tied into a great event, obviously, that's going on at the same time. And yeah, we go there and we love it, and it's been a firm fixture for many years.
And we're busy sort of consigning cars for that. And just finally, because it's new, and we ought to tell our listeners about it, we got a new. Well, no, actually,
Two new.
I knew, yeah,
Two new.
we've got 2 new sales,
Yeah.
and they're both in June.
One's in June, one's in July. Tegensie's in July.
Yes.
So we go to.
I'm only the marketing director.
Yeah, it's fine. It's fine.
Yeah.
You go as you.
I live, day by day,
hour by hour.
hour by hour, minute by minute.
So sorry, we are going to a brand new UK sale at Cliveden, which is extremely exciting because we traditionally have only done one sale a year in the UK. So this is our second sale that we're adding to the UK market. And yeah, it's going to be at a wonderful, wonderful stately home, which has lots of room for everyone to park and come up and see the cars and get familiar with things. So yeah, we're really delighted to be there. It's going to be a really exciting.
Nice to have a second UK sale because we've always had the UK sale in the autumn / winter.
Yes.
It's dark, it's a bit rainy, and there are reasons why we have it at that time, but it's nice to have something when in theory, even in Britain, the sun might be shining.
It might be. And last year, that sort of time of year, we went to Le Mans, and so we're always trying to do new stuff and find new events, and it's really exciting.
And Cliveden, of course, and this will only mean, if you're a UK listener, it'll only mean something, but it was the focal point of the Profumo, the Profumo scandal.
Yes, the swimming pool there, right?
Yeah, so a few shenanigans involving British politicians and, let's call them cool girls, all debatable, but
and spies.
And Russian spies.
Yeah.
And it was a huge political scandal and all over the newspapers. They've made movies about it. But the kind of the central hub of that scandal was Cliveden when it was a private home. But the swimming pool's still there.
Yeah.
It's very, very cool.
Great.
Very cool.
No, I'm excited to go there. Very excited to go to Cliveden.
So, and Tegensee, so we're going to have a second German sale, which is exciting, not far from Munich, at a lake, isn't it? Lake Tegensee.
Yes.
And there's going to be a new concourse event going on.
There is, and it's one that we know well because it's the same organisers of the Hampton Court Concours d'Elegance, which is now a really firm fixture in the UK calendar. And they're doing this one in Germany because I think, again, the German market is a new market, certainly for auctions and these kind of concours events, because there aren't that many events like that in Germany, funnily enough. And
No.
the sheer volume of cars that are in Germany is disproportionate to the number of events that you can show them at.
Yeah.
All well and good, a grubby hall in Essen showing your wares, but
Let's hope the organisers of the Essen show.
I love Essen. There's an absolute time and a place for Essen.
They're just grubby halls, aren't they?
They are slightly grubby halls. If you like, schnitzel and beer.
And I do.
Yeah, they're great places. But the Tegensee event is going to be a cut above, shall we say, as a new event and auction. We're set to bring a bit of glamour to the German car market.
We are indeed. So I think that's something else to look forward to. And that's basically just all of that, and we're still only halfway through the year. And then we've got a range of other things going on. But we'll save that for
Indeed.
another episode.
It's going to be busy, but the locations are really cool. We also should mention, of course, we've got a lot of sealed cars that we're going to be Sotheby sealed cars that we're going to be.
And let's not forget North America.
And North America. I mean, it's really jam packed. But that this is kind of what we do. Last year was the same. We pretty much had an auction every month for the whole year as an average. So yeah, it's really exciting. The locations are really cool, and it's like a good mixture of events that we're doing with those auctions.
Yeah,
which always help.
Totally. So okay, let's just moving on to a slightly different topic. We're recording this. It's January. It's the beginning of a new year, and it's a good time to reflect on the year that was, and the year that's coming. Yeah. So last year wasn't a bad year for the market, was it?
It wasn't. It wasn't
across the board. For dealers, for other auction houses, for us, it was a pretty solid year.
It was, and I think we were very fortunate last year to be able to pivot and move from country to country when we do our auction.
I'm just going to let him have some coffee.
So he's standing up to say something, I think, at this point. He's engaged.
What do you want to say about the market? Yeah, quite right. Anyway, carry on.
So but 2023, I think, was the year that everyone was predicting would be a disaster. Everyone felt war in Ukraine, huge energy price rises, interest rate rises, uncontrolled inflation, effectively, is what we saw at the beginning half of last year, which is slightly scary from a macro perspective. But bringing it back down to the collector car world, micro level, actually we performed really well, and the market performed well for what was brought to the market. And yes, we all know that the people are more scrupulous. There's a lot more questions being asked about every car that comes on, through the auction rooms. But we found some great product last year, and we sold it for, at that time what it was worth. And I think we can confidently say that, last year was a good year, and stuff made basically what it was worth at that moment in time. Yes, we've seen demand wane for certain era of cars or certain types of cars, but that's not to say that it can't come back around. And history is very cyclical. And I think, for example, this year ahead, moving from 2023 to 24. I think we're going to see a bit more confidence in the market than we did last year. I just think that, things have controlled, from banks, central banks across the world are starting to calm down when it comes to interest rate rises. If we're talking about potential interest rate falls now. So that has brought a degree of stability. Now, there's a lot of other factors at play here. If the Red Sea is shut for the next 6 months, that's not going to do much good for anyone, is it?
No.
But that said, I do think there's a bit more confidence in the market, and I do think that there's plenty of opportunity to expand new buyers and bring new buyers to the table. I mean, one thing we pride ourselves on is bringing new buyers to the market, and I'm excited to see who comes in this year as well. I actually think pre-war is due a little bit of a resurgence, shall we say, perhaps, because for years and years people have been saying that the pre-war buyers are dying off, and the younger generations are not taking up the mantle to they want to buy F40s and Countachs and cooler stuff, right, that appeal to them. But I don't know, maybe all it takes is somewhere like India or China to start really getting into the history of it all, for there to be a huge demand again for pre-war. So I think this might be the year that pre-war actually comes back to being a bit more of a stable currency than it has been in the last few years.
Yeah, I think, the death of the pre-war market has sort of been predicted for years and hasn't actually really come around. And for sure, if you do look at the real market values for certain cars, whether it's pre-war Bentleys or the cars that are very popular historically in that area, like 3098 Vauxhalls and stuff like that, they have softened.
Yes.
You don't pay as much now for a car as you would have done, say, 6, 7, 8 years ago. Yeah. But there is still demand, and they are, for sure. And because there is an appreciation of the beauty of them and
bespoke element.
Yeah, and interesting coach work. Bespoke coach building was at its peak in the pre-war era, wasn't it? I mean, it wasn't nearly so much a thing after the war, and if you really appreciate bespoke coach building and all of that and real sort of artisan skills,
Yeah.
pre-war's got it all
For sure.
and
history. You know, the one factor that you can't always put a price on is history. And if a pre-war car has notable ownership or has done something cool, then there is a huge interest in those sorts of vehicles.
And you and I are both members. Should we give a plug to the Trundlers? Let's give a plug to the Trundlers. So the Trundlers is a sort of a community of car enthusiasts, started off by a chap called Simon Ray, and lots of very young people in that group. In fact, I'm an old timer within that group, which I've suddenly realised, apart from Simon's dad. Me and Simon's dad. But what's amazing about that is the love of pre-war cars.
Is massive.
Is massive.
Yeah, and that, you know, that says something about, yes, you can go out and buy generic models and things of which are kind of mass produced, right? From after the Second World War, a lot of the models that we're used to selling are very built in high numbers, effectively. And you compare that to the pre-wars, that what's left, how many are surviving, and how original cars are surviving. I think preservation is what it's all about. And people, I think the younger generation, are starting to really get behind this originality, preservation kind of theme, which is just great because they are the coolest cars, in my opinion.
And the interesting thing is that, okay, look, you can go and buy an MG Midget or something of that nature quite cheaply if you want a kind of a post-war sports car. But, you know, you've got great demand for Austin 7s, pre-war Austin 7s. And partly that's driven by the fact that there are so many fantastic and fun events you can do. You can have, arguably, you can have way more fun with an Austin 7 than you can with an MG Midget because you can go and do VSCC trialling and all of that kind of stuff. Yeah. And so I mean, that might be a little bit UK specific. Yeah. We've got quite an eccentric pre-war scene in the UK that you don't always have in other countries. But certainly in the UK, I think the future for pre-war cars. And the thing is, if you get a 20-year-old into a 10 grand Austin 7, they're gonna, by the time that person's 50, they're gonna be fully immersed in the pre-war scene.
There's a sense that for younger people, pre-war cars are much more accessible from an ownership perspective. You can learn how to build and rebuild and look after your Austin 7. Whereas a more modern car requires much more specialist attention and servicing. So for young people, actually pre-war cars are brilliant because you can pick up real bargains out there, especially if you're up for a project.
It's Meccano. My dad was into cars, but what really, when I was young, I was just observing my dad pursue his hobby. But what he did when I was 16 is he presented me with a pile of bits and said, if you can build that, you can keep it.
Really?
And it was a pile of Austin 7 bits. And like there was an engine block over there and the chassis was leaning against a wall. And there was some springs and it was all there.
And it's still all there.
And he said, I'm going to help you, but I'm only going to help you a bit. You're going to have to learn. And that's exactly what I did. So from the age of for about a year so I got it when I was 16, but by the time I'd passed my driving test, the car was almost finished. And I knew nothing about, I didn't know one end of a spanner from another, but it can be done.
It can be done. Yeah. If you can do it,
if an idiot
anyone
like me,
can do it.
That is very true in so many things that I'm involved in. Yes, so there we go. Pre-war cars.
Pre-war in 2024. I think
sorry, because I was just going to. We're going to talk about Paris. Some of the consignments in our Paris sale another time. But you've actually consigned quite a big collection of pre-war cars to Paris, haven't you?
Yeah, a collection of cars that have been kind of collated and within this collection for, probably 30, 40 years, a lot of them, and are really well-known cars. Some of them have incredible one-off unique histories, royalty and the glitterati of the 1930s. Fangio drove one of them, which is a sort of crazy post-war aluminium special that's in the collection. There's a huge variety. There's a load of Ferraris in there, Daytona, a Testarossa with no miles. And the Daytona actually was originally purple, which is with white leather interior, which is very Peter Warman and very Peter Haynes, I'd say, in terms of
true.
When you were kids, I reckon that's a
You need a suntan though. You need a really good suntan for a car with a white interior, don't you?
Well, after Dubai, you might be able to.
Nice pair of Purcells.
No, it's a really cool, varied. We're calling it the Timeless Collection, and it is timeless because it spans sort of 70 years of motoring, from the earliest car to the latest car. But what the theme often that goes through the collection generally is that they're kind of flagship models of what they were. So there's a Phantom 3, right, which was the flagship Rolls-Royce at the time. There's a Phantom 2 with a one-off coach built. There's a Hispano H6, which was the first ever H6 Hispano, delivered new to the King of Spain. Exceptional histories to these cars. And a lot of them have done Pebble Beach, as well, in Villa d'Este. There's a beautiful Isotta Francini. This is the great thing about our industry, is that you can sign a collection like this, and inevitably, even as a specialist, you learn so much about new cars. The 8A Castagna, it turns out, was only built, there's only 8 of them built, to that specification as an 8A. And you just pick up on so much detail, and there's just the knowledge of pre-war and is immense.
We did a podcast with Alan Titchmarsh, and because he loves cars, for the listeners that aren't aware, and you're probably going to have to be British to know who Alan Titchmarsh is, but a well-known TV personality, and he's got an E-Type, which he said he loves, but he doesn't really drive. He's got a pre-war Lagonda, and he did have a 4.5 litre Bentley as well. And he just said, the reason why he prefers driving the Lagonda to the E-Type is that it's such a different experience to driving sort of any post-war car right up to the modern day. So a good post-war car, of course, the experience of driving your Alpha isn't the same as driving a Vauxhall Astra, but by that time cars were sufficiently advanced.
You had synchro mesh gearboxes and much better brakes.
But when you get to pre-war cars where you've got cable operated brakes and you've got steering that doesn't feel especially connected to the front wheels, and difficult gearboxes, they're interesting and challenging to drive,
but
they are the reason that sort of diametrically a different experience is the reason why people love the cars.
They're hugely rewarding to master, like just double declutching down through a Bentley gearbox or an Austin 7 gearbox even, is an incredibly rewarding experience as a driving experience. And as you say, it's completely different. It's a much slower pace. But because safety is so bad and you're basically hanging out of most of these cars, it feels like you're going a million miles an hour, which is brilliant. And there's a whole community, I think, of pre-war enthusiasts out there. And I saw it when I do my annual rally to Journée d'Automne, which is in the autumn, hosted by my friend Etienne and Guillaume, and they do a wonderful rally through the Champagne region of Reims. And basically, the camaraderie. One of my friends had a Fraser Nash, and another one had brought like a 1908 Bianchi which they drove from the UK to the Champagne region, like sitting on top of a car, basically, that kind of 1908 look. But inevitably, a few of them had mechanical problems, and they just all were immediately on the floor, looking under engines, getting oily, and helping each other to fix.
If you own a Fraser Nash, that's just standard.
That's standard, obviously.
Fix the chain.
That's standard on Fraser Nash. But the Nash went down, and then within 2 hours, it was back on the track again because they'd all just chipped in and helped each other. It's that kind of community which I think attracts people as well to the pre-war world.
So just perhaps wrapping up this episode. We talked about pre-war, and we think that the state of the pre-war market's looking pretty good. And as we start knocking off a few of the 2024 sales, I guess we'll see for ourselves. What else? Is there another? Are you still sort of predicting that the Ferrari market will remain strong? The Porsche market is going to stay?
Within certain areas, I think that you've seen a lot of the modern hype around Porsches starting to drop off a little bit. You see now, if if you want to go and find a GT3, the latest GT3, you can find them. They're available again. And there isn't this same like fanfare that we had during COVID, where you had to be on multiple waiting lists and you had to have bought these cars before you can bought that car.
Yeah.
And that all created crazy demand and huge rise in prices of residual values on those sorts of cars. Where I think the kind of general rule that most people acknowledge is the reality of the car market right now is that if you buy something that is 20 to 30 years old now, those are the cars in the next 10 years which are most likely to go up in value. Because as we know, the generation that lusted after them are now coming into more money, and that's why you see that sort of 20 years of depreciation on a newish car, and then at around the 20-year mark, the depreciation curves levels off and then starts to go up again. And if you buy, my only advice to anyone looking at what to buy is just do your homework and go with low numbers. Low volume is always going to work in your favour if you're looking to collect something.
Which of course has always been the interesting thing about the Porsche market, because although, you know, any GT2s are limited production, but 911s in general,
they pump them out.
They pump them out.
Yeah.
They always have in big numbers, which is, I think, when the Porsche market really started a few years ago to sort of go a little bit gangbusters. A lot of people were looking at it thinking, I don't really understand this, because there are so many of these cars on the market.
Yeah.
I mean, if you want a pre-74 2.2E, there's no shortage of them. But still the prices were building and building and building. That's different to Ferrari, because production numbers are always
lower.
Almost, you know, even the kind of ordinary Ferraris, a 308 GT4, for example. Production numbers were low for those cars.
It's true. And you know, in 2024, I guess if you told me that Porsche prices in certain regions are going to continue to go, I would believe you, because what we saw at the end of last year with the white collection that we did was just the demand for that brand is on a similar level, I think, to Ferrari. You know, Ferrari attracts certain type of collector.
Oh, he's off.
Bye, Bernie.
You've absolutely bored him senseless.
No, he just wants that.
No, he wants to get off.
He wants the Bakewell.
Sorry, for listeners, the dog is trying to eat a Bakewell tart.
So, Porsche world, Ferrari world, they are in their own sort of league, I think, when it comes to the volume of collectors that are demanding that product. And, it's, you know, you can see why. Like, Porsches are just, they're turnkey. You get in a Porsche, it's kind of going to work. And it's going to be a great engineering piece of automotive design that you can use every day. And that's the appeal, I think. Obviously, you go to the rarer models, the racier models, that's different. But in a general sense, any young person out there who wants to jump into a transactional, you know, early 944, we were talking about the other day, you want to buy a 944.
I really want a 944.
Or an early Boxster, let's say 2.5 litre Boxster. You know, that's a really good entry level to a brand that is, you know, legendary. And I think when people buy those sorts of cars, the sort of cheaper variants, they realise how good they are.
Do you know, my son, I've got a son that's recently turned 17 and he's learning to drive, and he's been getting onto Auto Trader and doing what you do when you're 17 and you want a car.
I still go on Auto Trader.
And of course, what he's completely doing is disregarding things like insurance. So he's like looking at premium brands, thinking, and he showed me a 2.5 Boxster the other day. It was just over $3,000. And it had done loads and loads of miles. Probably hasn't been serviced for 10 years. But bloody hell.
$3,000.
Yeah, okay, son. Nice. You're not having a Boxster.
No.
Because it will cost him £3,000 to insure it. But bloody hell.
Yeah.
$3 and a bit grand.
Yeah, it's extraordinary, isn't it? But there are, you know, for young people out there that are looking to buy classic cars, there are massive loopholes, especially when it comes to classic car insurance. You know, and I wouldn't be surprised if Boxsters are suddenly starting to be considered more classic. And you could probably get them on a classic policy. For example, if you had a classic policy and you added your son as a named driver, let's say, on that Boxster, I don't think it would be as crazily expensive as if he was looking for quotes himself.
Don't have this conversation with my son, by the way.
Giving him ideas.
He's going to have a Vauxhall Corsa.
Okay. Well, that's a good place to start.
Which is probably a classic in itself, isn't it?
Sure.
Yes. Okay. Good. Well, I think, should we wrap it up there? I think.
All I would say is I think 2024 is going to be super interesting. There are all sorts of pockets of the market, like we see interesting where they go. For example, like Formula One cars. We've had really good run with Formula One cars recently. It'd be really interesting to see where they go in 2024.
Yeah, and I think with those, what we've seen, the real kind of punchy end of the F1 market are the relatively recent cars.
Yes.
So the F1 cars of the last 20 or 30 years.
Indeed.
The sort of Formula One of the 1970s, for example, they're probably the next, because they're, by comparison, fairly more, like an old Surtees F1 car is not Schumacher, Ferrari valuable.
Sure.
So I wonder let's see what's going to go on with those.
Yeah, it'd be really interesting with those. And I think you'll still see more interesting kind of motorsport orientated cars, maybe Group B rally cars or endurance cars from the 1980s, 70s. That sort of area of the market is where I'm most interested in watching to see what happens in 2024, because I do think that in some cases, like, why is a 956 Porsche that did Le Mans less money than a Carrera GT? I do not understand that. They made so I just don't.
Well, we got a 962 in the Paris sale, haven't we?
We do good connection.
Yeah, with race history, and I think I'm dredging my memory. I think the estimate on that's about 1.5 euros.
Yeah, somewhere
ish. But it's a rare and a rare and historically important racing car.
Exactly, and it'd be really interesting to see where that area of the market goes in the next year or so. And I'm looking forward to all the events and seeing people out there and embracing the car culture that we have.
I agreed. And let's get ready for Paris. But thank you, Will.
Pleasure.
Thank you, Bertie.
Thanks, Bert.
He's just perked up and thinks he's going for a walk. Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining this episode of RM Sotheby's Car Show, and we will see you next time.